Hello and welcome to another episode of The Brothers Discuss. I am Alex.
And I am Chris.
So Chris, it's been a weird time for movies, I would say. Franchise movies have been a little on the down a bit. There's always been so much, especially now. Tentpole movies used to be because, tents have one big pole, like in the circus, right? And now there's like 50 tent poles that come out every year because it's all franchises and IPs and everything. Like Furiosa obviously didn't do well at the box office, and yet it's my favorite film of the year so far. And
Hmm.
then there's Inside Out 2, which I thought was fine, but that's the number one movie at the box office. And there's still a bunch to come out this year, I guess. Like, who knows how Joker will do. But then obviously like other films like Deadpool and Wolverine were not only did they do really well financially, but they did very well critically. And there were films like that were very popular. Like I liked A Quiet Place Day One. I loved Dune 2. So there have been very successful and very good films, and one that no one's talking about, and I don't know how it did financially. I didn't look this up ahead of time, but I really liked The First Omen. I talked about it on the pod, so there have been smaller ones that are technically franchise films that have done really well, and then really much bigger ones that have either done really well or not done that. What are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I feel like this summer has been like a pretty big word of mouth summer
Mhm.
for some movies. And like, I think the biggest example of that is probably Twisters of all things, which I think it had a pretty good launch, but like it definitely ended up overperforming, which is good. And, but yeah, it was quite interesting summer for like what you would expect for your big tentpole movies, like you were saying.
Yeah. And I guess I might as well. I mean, we could talk about it briefly now. This is a pretty recent topic, but we saw Beetlejuice.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a new film. It stars Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice and some other people. Um, have you seen? You've seen Beetlejuice recently, have you? For the
I
first
have
time?
seen it. Yeah, I've seen it recently, but yeah, it was for the first time. So I'm not like the biggest Beetlejuice fan. But I've always liked the concept of it, and honestly, I kind of got to know the story more through the Broadway musical. I haven't seen it, but like I've listened to a lot of the music of it, and
Mm,
so that's kind of like how I got into Beetlejuice. And then I watched the first movie, and then I watched the second movie a couple times.
yeah, and you know what? As far as like legacy sequels go, I enjoyed this one a lot. It reminded me a lot of the first one in terms of how weird and random it was, which I
Yeah.
actually mean as a compliment. It's not one that I think I'll be going back to watch a bunch of times. It probably could have had a little more Beetlejuice in it, and I don't know if the movie really made a ton of sense, but it also tried to make more sense, I guess, than the first one in terms of being in several locations and just there being a lot of rules to the world, and I very much enjoyed it though. Catherine O'Hara is incredibly funny, and Winona Ryder was present on screen. But it was a fun movie, and like I said, Michael Keaton was very good. I would have liked some more of him probably, but I very much enjoyed the film. How about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like it definitely is kind of all over the place. There's a lot that's happening, but like at the end of the day, it was just like a really solid comedy, and it was actually just like probably my favorite movie experience I've had of the year. Because I saw an early screening of it, so there
Hmm.
was really packed theater, and everyone was just into it. So, I just that alone kind of like made the movie for me.
That's interesting because when I saw this, I was in a very small screening. And I was like,
Uh,
"Oh, it's opening weekend of Beetlejuice, and nobody is seeing this." That's interesting.
yeah.
I'm gonna warn everyone ahead of time. I've got a few rants coming up. Uh, so I feel like everything now is this like beloved, cherished thing, right? Like Beetlejuice. Like I've seen people talking, and I apologize. I guess people could probably think where this is going, where people are reacting like, oh my God, 35 years and we finally have this. And it's like, does everything need a sequel? Does everything need to be paid off in this big major way where it's like, finally, it's like if they made another Back to the Future and people were like, finally, another Back to the Future. And it's like, we don't need another Back to the Future. Like, were we all waiting for this legendary sequel that was supposed to come out? Like, Back to the Future Part 4. Like, I don't know if we need that. And obviously, if it's good and it's entertaining and people enjoy it, then so be it. And once again, going into that franchise stuff, I didn't see Alien Romulus. I saw Red Letter Media's review of it, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. Did you see Alien Romulus?
I haven't yet. I was kind of I did like start going through all of the Alien movies. The only one I haven't seen is Covenant, so I guess I'm lucky. But yeah, so I think I will eventually, but I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Fair enough. I mean, you mentioned Twisters earlier, and we saw Twisters, and I really liked it, actually.
I was definitely surprised by it.
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
That felt to me anyway like they were kind of taking the concept of the first film and just sort of taking it more seriously. That's at least how it felt to me as I was watching it. So I did enjoy that. And it's one that I would recommend because it's not the first one. It shares a concept, obviously, but that's kind of all it does. Like, if this was called Cyclones or something like that, I think people would be like, oh, it reminds me of Twister. But that would kind of be it. But because there's not a lot of connective tissue, like the Dorothy machine from the first film appears in it, and that's kind of all the connecting that they have. Okay, another franchise one I did see that I'm remembering now was Maxine, which, yeah, the third in the X trilogy, which, was fine. I mean, I enjoyed watching it, but it's kind of begun to leave my brain. I mean, Pearl is the one of those three that people talk about the most, and X is like a proper horror film with like a hunter-killer type character in it. But yeah, to me, I think I might now. At the time, I think I ranked it as Pearl, Maxine, X, and now I'm swapping X and Maxine. I might like X more than I liked Maxine. But I mean, it's got good production value, and there was like a funny reference to the events of X and seeing Old Lady Pearl in the Bates Mansion from the set of Psycho and things like that. That was fun. But a lot of the films, it's kind of left my brain. And the third act, which is the thing that everyone's complained about with mostly, like that's the thing that definitely let the film down the most to me. So yeah, but that's a weird one to call a franchise because that's like a trilogy. I mean, sure, it's funny to us and we've talked about this a bunch, how we call things franchises, like the Twisters franchise or universe. Like, what does that even mean? Like the Twisters universe. It just sounds really weird. And I think back to the CW DC shows like the Arrowverse, and it's like, what the fuck does that mean? And so now it's like a popular thing that people say, which is weird.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's another rant. I've been dying to get into.
Mm-hmm.
Popcorn buckets. I'm over the popcorn buckets. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know if it was like a theme park thing, like a Disney theme park thing that bled into the movie stuff or what, but there's been so many popcorn buckets. Like, you know what really did it for me? So the Batman had its re-release recently, and for that, they released this Bat Signal popcorn bucket. Have you seen this?
I have seen this, yeah.
I mean, well, first of all, it's like an 89 logo, but the thing is that it like lights up. So it's like, what are we doing here? Like, that's not a popcorn bucket. Like, are you supposed like, is the idea that you're supposed to sit in the theater with the bat signal on your lap, with it shining on the ceiling, and eat popcorn. That's just like, how are you enjoying a movie when you have to deal with this collectible on your crotch? Like, I can understand it as a collectible, obviously, but it just seems like, just buy a bat signal. Just buy a Dune sandworm. Just buy a Slimer. Like, they're just so cumbersome, and they're so ridiculous now that I don't get it. It's become too big. It's too much.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think the Dune one kind of made it really trendy because I know with AMC popcorn buckets for Deadpool, they like mimic that basically, and have the Wolverine with the mouth. And I work at a movie theater, and I have seen the upcoming Venom popcorn bucket, which seems to be more of the same, which is kind of funny. But yeah, trust me, I've noticed this too, and it's kind of getting crazy.
It's like, it's not quite near like Funko Pop levels of ridiculousness, but I mean, I can understand the collectible nature of Funko Pops because they do make them for everything. So there's like an argument there where it could be made of like I do not think that Funko Pops are as popular as they were like approximately 10 years ago, but they are still so incredibly popular because they make them for everything, including much older stuff. But the popcorn buckets are so specific. I mean, you mentioned the Deadpool one, where like I don't know if people liked it. Like, I mean, it's a weird one. It's like an open mouth Wolverine, and that's meant to be like, I guess, suggestive looking, I guess. Like, it just looks stupid. Like, I didn't get it. And I'm sorry, Mr. Feige. I don't think Deadpool designed a very good popcorn bucket there.
Well, what's interesting is that, like, that's AMC. I work at a Regal, and what's interesting with them is that, like, their popcorn buckets, arguably, although they have gotten better recently, but overall, they're not quite as good. But, like, they've had several, like, per movie. Like, we had 3 popcorn buckets for Deadpool. We had 3 popcorn buckets for Beetlejuice. And, like, it's absolutely insane. And some of them, I mean, some of them are cool, but like some of them, like, they're so impractical. It's hilarious.
I guess in terms of other things that have been happening recently, people have turned on Jack Black very quickly. Jack Black made a weird choice when, like, he decided to essentially end Tenacious D for comments about Trump. I mean, not to get political on the Brothers Discuss podcast, but why the fuck not? But it's like a Jack Black downfall between that. He was in the Borderlands movie, and then now with the Minecraft trailer, where he plays Steve, the Minecraft guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, now people hate Jack Black.
Well, it's I don't know anything about like the whole Tenacious D thing, but yeah, he's become like the go-to video game actor, I guess, between Borderlands, Mario, and now Minecraft. Like, that's his job, and yeah, I mean, I think Minecraft's got a whole list of problems besides Jack Black, but he's certainly up there.
Right. When did Kung Fu Panda 4 come out?
That came out like March, February. I don't know.
That was this year?
Yeah.
Wow, and no one talked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, some things like, okay, when I was looking up tickets for Beetlejuice, there were a lot of tickets available, and I was like, oh, this is the opening weekend, and no one's buying tickets from the looks of things, which is interesting. But to me, Beetlejuice is like a big movie that people go back and watch a bunch. I could be wrong. I could be looking at that through the eyes of a film goer like us. But Kung Fu Panda, like, I just kind of assumed that kids would still see that because those movies aren't that old. Like, the first one came out in 2008, and then they kept coming out into like the 2010s. But I don't know, maybe Kung Fu Panda is kind of old and people aren't into it anymore. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that Minecraft trailer.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on the Minecraft trailer?
So I I kind of forgot it was gonna be a live action thing, and I think that's probably the most distracting thing because I mean they also like released a clip of it recently,
Mhm.
um, and I don't know, like I like Minecraft. I play it like every now and then, but it's interesting, this trailer, and I don't really feel like there's much to explain. It's like even if you have like semi knowledge about like what Minecraft is, you could watch that trailer and just kind of get that the vibes are kind of off with it.
I mean, it looks phony. Like it doesn't look like a movie. It's like
Mhm.
I've seen people talk about Jason Momoa looking like he's like in an SNL sketch, but it's not even that. Like I don't know if sketch is the right term. Like one of their like digital things, but it doesn't look like that even. It looks way faker. Like
Yeah.
so, I don't know. I have no idea. Like it's amazing how like back and forth we are with these like video game movies, right? But then I saw a tweet like when that trailer came out where it's just a screenshot of I forget her name. It's the actress in Peacemaker. It's Amanda Waller's daughter. It's just her in. It's just a screenshot of her basically, and then the with the caption being, "You've got to be fucking kidding me." And I was like, "Yeah, no, the movie looks really bad," but it didn't even register to me that he's talking about the fact that there's a black woman in Minecraft. And he's like, "What? You're fucking stupid." But it's like it's just surprising to me that a Minecraft movie is being made now. Like I mean, it kind of feels like Barbie in the sense that we waited this long to make Barbie. It doesn't feel right. Like it feels like we should have made Barbie like, 20 years ago. But here
Right.
we are at the 20. I mean, Barbie's been famous way longer than 20 years, but you know what I'm saying. Like Minecraft, on the other hand, that feels like that should have been made in the 2010s or something like that. But here we are in essentially the mid 2020s, and it's getting made now, which is weird. And I think that they're essentially making Super Mario. I do think that they're going more in that sense where it's like it's not 100% accurate, but it's accurate enough that people will love it and see it a bunch of times and it'll be really successful. I think
Mhm.
that's what people see, but I could be totally wrong. I am not sure. But then on the flip side of that, we have the Sonic 3 trailer, and I've seen nothing but love for that trailer.
Yeah.
And I know there is a mindset that video game adaptations are getting better because of like The Last of Us or Fallout and some of these TV shows that have been successful. But I don't know with the movies. I mean, I know that Sonic and Super Mario have been successful. And I mean, that first Sonic movie, I would not say it was like a one-to-one adaptation, but the second one, I think was maybe more like what people wanted to see. I don't know, but I mean, video game adaptations are such a weird thing because for the longest time, everyone knows they're bad. So now we're in this mindset of like, oh, but look at them now. They're good. Like, are they? All right.
Well, I mean, it just kind of depends. It's like I think, video game movies are kind of hard to pull off. I like the first Sonic. I haven't seen it since it came out, but like um that I feel like you can kind of make your own spin on things because Sonic is a pretty simple game, and I feel like you can do that into a movie. But like when you tackle things like Last of Us or Fallout, and those are like some of the better adaptations we've gotten. You kind of you have to expand that more only in a way like a TV show can do. And I feel like that kind of format works better for those types of video games. Now, like stuff, I never saw Borderlands. I've never played a Borderlands game, so like I honestly have no idea, what that movie does, and it's kind of like up for debate, like whether or not, like how much creative freedom uh people should be allowed to have with these movies and shows compared to the games. Like how much of that history and lore do you want to break and do your own thing? So I don't know. It's interesting, but like at the end of the day, I'm just kind of looking for like just quality entertainment, whether or not it's based off of a video game. So,
It's just a
it,
crapshoot at this point.
hmm
Well, not to change the subject, but if we're talking about stuff that didn't quite work, Chris, I saw a movie. It was
Oh
called
yeah.
The Crow. I saw The Crow. Okay, so The Crow. The 1994 Crow, I quite enjoy. It certainly has a lot of dated elements to it, but I think it's quite an enjoyable film. This new one, they spent way too much time, I thought, on the backstory side of things. I mean, the 1994 Crow, you get your opening and you're told like, oh, the Crow, Eric, was thrown out of a building or something and dies, and Shelley is essentially, apologies for the language, is raped and killed, and that's kind of all we know. And then within 5 minutes, like a year later, and Eric wakes up and he's the Crow. And we get a very well put together sequence where he suits up, where it's actually not, I'm blanking on the name. It's not Brandon Lee. It was the director of the John Wick film suiting up as the Crow. But it's a very well put together sequence, and it's a very good film. Anyway, the point is, we spend, I want to say like 60 to 70% of the film, let's say 60% of the film, on the romance between Eric and Shelley. And that's the bulk of the movie. And then he becomes the Crow, essentially for like the last, we'll say third, I guess. Last third of the movie is what we find is when we finally get Bill Skarsgård as the Crow. And there's a very good sequence in an opera where he's like, you see in the trailer, he's like killing all these people, and it's a big part of the trailer, but it's a really big sequence in the movie. And during that, I was like, hey, you know what? This is getting pretty good. But we were like deep into the movie at that point, and we were like nearing the third act. Like we could have already been in it by that point. Anyway, The Crow was not very good. I appreciated aspects of it, and it looked nice in aspects, and it wasn't just the first one. Again, which I appreciated, but it was also just like, okay, this is The Crow again. I don't know. Like I haven't seen any of the other Crow sequels that they made in like the 90s and all that. But yeah, this is unnecessary.
hmm
I guess recently, I mean, we'll talk about stuff that we like. Uh, there's the Penguin show that's out now, which has sparked some more excitement for the Matt Reeves Batman universe.
hmm
Um, so there's been some talks of like his sequel to the Batman, and how he's saying like he wants to keep these films grounded, and so like maybe we're not gonna get stuff like Man Bat or Clayface. So everyone's first assumption is Court of Owls. So let me ask you, Chris, what would you like to see in a Batman 2?
And a Batman, well, I don't know if this would necessarily be a Batman 2, but I've always wanted to see a live action Hush. I feel like that's, especially in Matt Reeves, I feel like that's a really solid villain you can pull off.
Sure, sure.
Um, and you know, I've always really liked that villain for Batman, and the fact that we haven't seen a live action adaptation yet, you know. So that, again, I don't know if you would do that for Batman 2, but that would be like one of my contenders is to do that.
Yeah, well, I guess the Court of Owls thing just sounds so almost internet chosen because it's what people have been talking about for such a long time. I mean, people are talking about it a lot before the 2022 film. So I guess in that respect, I'm happy for it, no, not to be something that I'm not expecting. But then when you say not expecting, people for some reason think that means Mr. Freeze or Clayface, which I also definitely don't think it's going to be. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to sit here and just be like, give me Scarecrow or a character I like. I mean, I'm not saying that at all, but it's like I kind of want it to be something that I don't see coming. So if it's like it's Court of Owls or it's Mr. Freeze, I'll be like, oh, okay, those were the internet ones, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Um, so like I mean, the Batman is a very very strong movie, and it's kind of weird to look at that and be like, how can you expand on this and try and make it take it somewhere that it didn't really establish in that film at all, which is why the Penguin TV show, it basically being, what if we did The Sopranos, but in Gotham City? Like, that sounds like a fine thing to do to expand on this world, like trying to take it to places where it's like, okay, something that I really liked about the first film is taking the Riddler and keeping him as the Riddler, but definitely basing him a little more on the Zodiac Killer and things like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, here's something that you're not expecting at all. Just it just doesn't really interest me that much. Like something like the Court of Owls, which is obviously a much more recent comic book concept as compared to the Riddler, for example. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit like, oh, that's so recent, but maybe the fact that it is over 10 years now means it's not that recent. So we could try it maybe.
Hmm.
But not for nothing. I think the Court of Owls are probably the best modern addition to the Batman mythos, I would say. Um, but I mean, it's funny to me. I mean, obviously we got this Penguin TV show. We got this Riddler comic book that was written by Paul Dano last year. We've got these little things that are expanding the universe. And it's funny that Batman is the character that technically, I guess, we've spent the least amount of time with. Like if you want to add all of these things up. But yeah, I'm interested to see where they take the next one. I guess it's kind of like a Dark Knight Rises situation where it's like everyone was talking about the Riddler or the Penguin. And that was like the big things that everyone was rumoring. And I mean, there was some Catwoman stuff here and there, but it seemed to be like, especially the Riddler was the big rumor. And then like Hugo Strange was the big rumor. I mean, Hugo Strange is actually a good one that they haven't really done in the movies at all. So a
Hmm.
character like that I'd like to see. And if we're spending more time in Arkham now, with Riddler in there and Joker in there, I guess, which again, I don't really care that much to see more of the Joker. I've seen enough of him. Yeah, I guess I'm interested in that sense of what they do. So I guess I'm just hoping it's not something that I see coming.
Yeah.
Um, well, I guess to wrap this up, we talked about his popcorn bucket earlier, but Deadpool Wolverine came out and we saw it, and a lot of people liked it, and I'm happy for those people. But there are elements of it I liked, and I kind of like this thing that they set up in Loki of like this hell world. It kind of looks like Mad Max, except without any of the style. And oh, here's a bunch of riffraff of Marvel characters that are like a team. It's like that. That sounds fun. That sounds like a movie to me,
Hmm.
but it's not really what the movie is. And the rest of the movie is very Deadpool based, and some of the Wolverine stuff in it is good, I guess. Cassandra Nova doesn't really make a lot of sense, but there are elements of it I enjoyed. The moment where Wolverine puts on his mask, I believe makes people in cinemas cheer. I can't say it did that for me, but, you know, I don't know why we're talking about this. It was fine. What did you think?
Yeah. No, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I think the idea of having the island of Marvel Misfits, like that's a fun concept, and I think that kind of works in like the story of Deadpool, but thematically, it's like I go back and forth on whether or not we're supposed to laugh at the fact that these characters are back, or if we're supposed to cheer. Like,
Mm.
the context of a lot of these characters being back, like Elektra, for example. I don't think you're supposed to be cheering when Elektra shows up because, she had one terrible movie and was the worst part of another movie. So it's like, I don't know like where the excitement from that is coming from, but I don't know. We're not big Deadpool guys, and like this movie is no exception to that. It's just kind of like more of the same. This time it's been Disneyified basically, but um, that's kind of how I would put it probably. This is of the three, this is probably my least favorite Deadpool movie, and it's not the worst thing in the world, but yeah, it's not that great either.
Yeah. Wasn't it a great fond farewell or tribute to like the Fox Marvel era by incorporating a character that was not from Fox?
Yeah. I mean, I
mean,
get it, but like it's still shouldn't have been there.
yeah. I will say Channing Tatum's Gambit was at least fun.
Yeah.
I don't need more of him, but he was fun.
Hmm.
I mean, look, the big thing is the Human Torch thing. That makes absolutely no sense to me. So, spoilers, but yes, Chris Evans shows up, and he's not Captain America. He's the Human Torch, and he tries to fry Pyro, but he can't because it's Pyro. And it's like, hey, you know what? That's kind of creative. I don't think I've ever seen Pyro fight the Human Torch. That's interesting. And then they just kill him later. Like Deadpool gets him killed by Cassandra Nova, and there's an after credit scene that explains it, I guess, but it doesn't really make any sense why he got him killed. And it's like, is Deadpool the hero of the story or not? Like, I'm confused. So anyway, Marvel Studios made an R-rated movie, so we're probably gonna get more of those now. And there's a joke about there's only one blade, and Deadpool kind of looks into the camera, and I laughed at that, but I didn't have a lot of laughing to do in this movie. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you have anything else to say about Deadpool Wolverine?
If we're talking about laughs, one of the only jokes that actually made me laugh in this movie, and I think it's just the delivery of it, but it's when like Wolverine and Sabretooth are about to have their like big showdown, like Deadpool is just like, Sabretooth, your brother. And I think it's just the way he says it, but like that actually made me chuckle. But yeah, other than that, like nothing really stood out with this movie. It just kind of feels like you took those 20 minutes of Multiverse of Madness, actually made it rated R, and that's the movie, and you just have a lot more stupid Deadpool stuff going on. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about it, so do
mhm.
you?
Nah, I'm good.
Nice. All right. Well, hey, Chris, where can people find you online?
You can find me over on Letterboxd and Instagram.
Same here. And you can also find my work as a video editor on the amazing Spider Talk podcast on the YouTubes. So check that out. I'm actually on the newest episode that's on the Patreon right now, where I went to Baltimore Comic Con and we got ourselves a scoop at the convention. So allude, plug. Check it out. All right, we'll see y'all next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.